Hello and welcome to Your Questions Answered with Father Gruner. I'm John Veneri. In this program, we take the questions that you send to us, and Father Gruner answers them, and we discuss them and talk about them. And please continue to send them to us, questions@thefatimacenter.com. This one will go on a little long, but it's necessary for me to quote the whole thing because Father Gruner then can really comment on it. But they're basically asking about a quote from the future Pius XII in the 1930s, Monsignor Pacelli. He was Secretary of State under Pius XI. And prior to his elevation to the papacy, he made the following comment. It has to do with Fatima. And the question that they're asking is, where did this come from? Okay, she's basically saying, the woman is saying, I've seen this all over the place, but I don't know where it comes from. The underlying question is this authentic, when you're asking where it came from? So, here we are. He said in the late 1930s...
No, it's the early 1930s.
Early 1930s, thank you. I am worried by the Blessed Virgin's message to Lucy of Fatima. The persistence of Mary about the dangers which menace the Church is a divine warning against the suicide of altering the faith in her liturgy, her theology, and her soul. I hear all around me innovators who wish to dismantle the sacred chapel, destroy the universal flame of the Church, reject her ornaments, and make her feel remorse for her historical past. A day will come when the civilized world will deny its God, when the Church will doubt as Peter doubted. She will be tempted to believe that man has become God. In our churches, Christians will search in vain for the red lamp, where God awaits them. Like Mary Magdalene, weeping before the empty tomb, they will ask, where have they taken them? That's the end of the quote.
Where have they taken him?
Where have they taken him? Thank you.
So, well, I would say the first thing is hardly necessary almost to authenticate this passage because it's prophetic. I mean, you've got how many people? I remember going to the shrine in 1994 of Our Lady of Guadalupe. I spent 5 or 10 minutes looking around the new basilica. I knew where it was in the old basilica, to find out where the Blessed Sacrament was. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't like it's the first time I have it in my life. It's just, I knew it took that long to find it. I was looking, I knew it had to be there. I looked, I finally found it. But, you know, where have they taken him exactly? Yeah. But I mean, that's... But
even Mother Angelica in the 90s used to say, when you visit the church, genuflect before the Blessed Sacrament, if you can find it.
Yeah, yeah. Yes. Well, that's so, but I mean, I can tell you, in the 50s, in the 40s, I don't remember so well, but the 50s, the 60s.
It's unthinkable.
You wouldn't somebody saying this in the 30s, if it was going to happen in the church, you wouldn't expect it at all.
Because of the old churches, of course, the entire architecture were built in such a way that they drew you straight to the altar and straight to the tabernacle. Yeah. It pulled you right in. Yeah. At least
and everyone knew exactly where the Blessed Sacrament was. And there was no question of where it was going to be, and it was just the way it was. I mean, but obviously, this is what's happened to the Church. And so this is foretold, and Cardinal Pacelli at the time tells us that the Blessed Virgin told us, Our Lady of Fatima told us, Lucy. This is in the secret as far as I'm concerned. This is the part they won't reveal to us.
It would have to be.
Because and we've written books about this. I mean, Devil's Final Battle goes to a great length. You know, it also is in, I think, Chris Ferrara's book, The Secret's Still Hidden. It's in our videos on the subject.
And from what I know, the source from this is not necessarily a traditional Catholic.
No. In fact, the source of this, the man who quoted this, is Monsignor George Roche, and who is the secretary, who was, I'm sure he's gone to his reward by now. He was writing a book on Cardinal Tisserand. Mm-hmm. Tisserand was one of the main negotiators for the so-called Vatican-Moscow Agreement before the Second Vatican Council, and Roche was writing a memoir of him, and in this he's giving a description of. No, it's the same one writing about. He's writing about. He's the secretary of Cardinal Tisserand, but he wrote a memoir. He wrote another book on Pius XII. It was called, it's in French, called Pius XII Before the Bar of History. And this incident is referred to in there. Mm-hmm. I think it's 1931, if I'm not mistaken, when this took place.
When the quote, yeah.
And so
that's a year after Fatima was officially approved.
Yes. And of course, in being the Secretary of State,
He would have access to documents.
And documents, and also he could have, I don't think it was actually written down there, but he would have access to Sister Lucy. If the Cardinal Secretary of State goes to see Sister Lucy, and she was much more accessible then than she was in her later life, he would have had access. And I must have talked to her, and that's what he, and so he's quoting it, and it's taken place to this. And we're talking about the suicide of the church. I mean, they're selling off churches in Buffalo, in Detroit, in Chicago, every major city in the United States. They're even the Vatican. In fact, I was just talking to somebody not so long ago in Rome, and he's saying that although it's not known, there's millions of dollars worth of churches that are closed, and they're trying to find some way to, but it's so quote unquote discreet that most people don't even know it exists. But there's a lot of churches closed in Rome also. So the church, why are they closing churches? Because no one's going in them. Why are they doing that? Because of this act of suicide, that is a self-inflicted wound from the Second Vatican Council, changing the liturgy, and people don't go to Mass anymore.
Yep.
I mean, how hard is that?
And altering the faith.
And altering the faith. And all this is predicted, all by Sister Lucy, and he's worried by this, this insistence or this persistence of Our Lady telling us of Lucy. It's all there. It's a prophecy which is fulfilled before our eyes. You couldn't tell that in the 1930s. It's obvious that it had to be
Yes, well, I think the commentators say that the prophecies are always clearest for people who were living through them at the time, and we are certainly living through this. I mean, even I'm reminded when he says, I'm trying to find it here, where they talked about make her feel remorse for her historical past.
So-called apologies.
We're supposed to be apologizing and he's quoting this as something. Of course, any Catholic would recognize that is a perversion of the faith and an absence of a truly Catholic spirit.
Yes. So we have the civilized world, the Johannes Guide. Basically, John Paul II referred to the silent apostasy in Europe. And that's when he refers to civilized Europe. Europeans often refer to Europe as the civilized world. So it might be a way of referring to Europe. But whatever, it's not just Europe, of course, that's doing that, but certainly Europe has basically apostatized and it's denied his God. I mean, you don't. So we have, if they would only say their prayers and get others to say their prayers. I mean, we have a campaign of rosaries we have war sitting on our edge, and what are they doing? I don't see any call for prayer coming from the Vatican, which reminds me of what Sister Lucy said. Don't wait for the call for penance to come from the Pope and the Vatican. Don't wait for the call for penance to come from the chancellery offices. Don't wait for the call for penance to come from the religious orders. It won't come. That's why it's up to us to do it on our own and to remind everyone on our path. Now, whether she said it won't come or not, up to now, it hasn't come.
No, it hasn't. So, and the person who would want to read more about this too, an entire book really that it's not based around this quote, but it could have been, and that's The Devil's Final Battle. Yes. Because The Devil's Final Battle talks about Fatima's warning against the dangers to the faith. Yes. And one of the pieces of evidence we have for that is the fact that Cardinal Pacelli himself connected something that was said by Our Lady of Fatima to a unprecedented crisis of faith in which the liturgy would be perverted, in which the faith would be tampered with.
Another book on the same subject would be The Suicide of Altering the Faith and Liturgy.
Yeah, specifically on the liturgy.
On liturgy, and that's Father Kramer's book. But certainly, anyway, I don't know how much more we can say about this in a short answer, but it's authentic. It's obviously authentic.
It's authentic, and it goes back to 1931. And as I said, it wasn't a quote-unquote traditionalist writing it. Yeah. It was a historian, really.
Yeah, well, Monsignor Roche, I mean, he was defending Cardinal Tisserand for the Vatican-Moscow Agreement, I believe, on the basis of obedience. Obedience can't defend it, but that's a whole other subject. But he was certainly be considered quote-unquote mainstream, not sort of he wasn't a Fatimist or something like that.
Okay, well, so that's all for this program. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you on the next broadcast.